Hello everyone, this is Arickamisha. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today's video, I was praying and talking to God. Y'all know me, always talking to God. And I was talking to God about what it is that He wanted me to come and talk about today and share. I always go to God for guidance, before I share. Because I want to make sure I'm sharing what God wants me to share. And today God wanted me to talk about something that's very close and very dear to my spiritual journey, as I can say. It was definitely a very important stage in my relationship with God, with Christ. And I want to talk about how I left on a promise. I left on a promise. And God was just ministering to me and talking to me about what it is that He has me doing for His glory. When I finally decided to answer the call, and you know what I mean, answer the call of what it is that God had for my life. And I was working full time, and actually I had just got a promotion at work, and things are going great. Financially stable, no problems there. God was always the provider. And I had just got a promotion at work, and things were going great. Living my best life. Everything was in order. I was happy. Finances was where they needed to be. And one morning I woke up and God said, now mind you, this is after I decided to answer the call. I said, God, okay, I was tired of running. And I said, okay, God, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to answer the call. And I answered the call that God had on my life. It was not easy. I would try to remember to leave linked at the end of this video, that video where I share, where I actually answered the call of Christ. And I had answered the call of God, and living life, doing what God was calling me to do. And God said to me, one morning I woke up, doing the usual, getting up, getting ready for work. And I got up and I was sitting on the side of the bed. And God said to me, I want you to put your 2 weeks notice in. Now, somebody who's worked all her life, I know, if you know me, you know me. Worked all my life, always always worked, always made sure I was financially able to provide for me and my family. And just anybody who knows me knows I worked hard every day. I went to work, did my job, came home, made that money, worked that overtime when it was available, just making the money to do what I need to do, provide for the family, pay the bills, the normal. And I woke up one morning. This was about 3 weeks before Christmas. It was the first week of December. Just put it that way. I'll never forget it. It was the first week of December. And I looked around and I said, what God? And God said, when you go to work, He said, I want you to get up. He said, I want you to go over to your computer and I want you to type out your 2 weeks notice. He said, it's time. I said, well, God, what do you mean it's time? I already answered the call, God. You see, I'm doing what you called me to do. I answered the call. He said, yes, I know. He said, you answered the call. He said, so now that you've answered the call, this is what I want you to do. And I'm telling you, I sat on the side of my bed and I just began to cry. And I just began to cry and I began to say, God, I know it's you. I know it's you, God. I hear your voice. Because God had been dealing with me and telling me for weeks he was telling me, okay, it's time for you to come out of the 9-to-5 now. I want you to work for me full time. And he had been talking to me about it. And I was just putting it off, saying, oh, okay, God, how am I going to provide for my family? How am I going to do this? How am I going to pay the bills? And da-da-da-da. He had been talking to me and confirming over and over that it was time to leave my 9-to-5. And God just kept telling me that. And I was just ignoring him. I was saying, okay, God, all right, okay. I will. So he had been talking to me about this. This wasn't, out of the blue. He had been talking to me about it. And I've just been ignoring him, not obeying him. Out of fear. God, you're asking me to leave my 9-to-5 that provides for me and my family. This 9-to-5 where I just got a promotion. Great. I had just got my insurance license. It was a lot. A lot had happened, And he said, yes. He said, I've been telling you this for weeks. He said, you keep saying you're going to do it, but you're not doing it. He said, you're being disobedient. He's like, this is what I've called you to do, and this is what I want you to do. God said, I want you to come work for me full time. And I'm telling you, who wouldn't want God as their boss? Who wouldn't want that? But we all know, spiritually, that sounds great. That was sounding great to me. But in the natural, it was like, oh no, I can't do that. And I'm telling you, God had been talking to me over and over, and I just kept ignoring him and saying, okay, putting it off. But this particular morning, let me move on. This particular morning, he said, okay. He said, when I sat up, he said, I want you to go over to your computer, and type out your 2 weeks notice, print it out and take it to work today. He said, I've been telling you this for weeks. You keep telling me you're going to do it. You keep telling me you're going to do it, but you're not doing it. He said, I need you to do it today. He said, no, not later. He said, today. And I took a deep breath. And I went over to my computer and I sat down at my desk. And I typed out my 2 weeks notice. Now, I'm going to be very honest with you, because I use my platform to share my spiritual journey, to share what God leads me to share. And I pray that it may help someone. I pray that it may help someone. And as I was typing out this 2 weeks notice, I was just crying. Tears was just falling. And I'm trying to type on the computer and my eyes are full of water, and I'm trying to type and I keep making mistakes and I'm deleting and going back and all kinds of stuff I'm doing, just trying to type out this simple 2 weeks notice. And I finally typed it out, and I'm telling you, it took me at least 30 minutes before I hit that print button. And I said, God, I am afraid. And you know what? God, he knew, duh. He's all knowing. God knew I was afraid. He knew that. And I said, God, I am afraid. I'm afraid, God. That's what I said to him. Hold on, y'all. Camera's looking a little weird. Sorry about that, y'all. Anyway, and God knew that I was afraid. He knew. And I just sat there, and before I hit the print button, I said, God, I am afraid. I'm very afraid to leave my 9-to-5. I said, God, I would love to come work for you. I said, but I am afraid. This was something new. I didn't know anything about working for God, you know what I mean? And a 9-to-5 is all I've ever known. And a 9-to-5, that's how we were raised. We're born and raised. You get up, you go to work, you work at 9-to-5, you do what God has called you to do. I mean, you go to work and you do what you're supposed to do. You go to work, you make that money, you pay your bills, and here it is. God is saying to me, it's literally another point in my life where the spirit and the flesh were colliding. They were colliding because the spirit was telling me, hey, God is telling you to do this. You got to trust God if he's telling you to do something. That's what my spirit was saying. I trust you, God. I trust you, God. You've done so much for me, God. You've brought me from so much, God. And then the natural was like, so how you gonna pay your bills? How you gonna do it? Because, okay, how you gonna do it? How you gonna do it? Because we all know you make money by going to work. Like, what you talking about? What you talking about? Anyway, so I'm telling you, the spirit and the flesh just colliding. Spirit and the flesh just colliding. And I said it again. I said, God, I am afraid. I am afraid to do this. This is why I haven't done it. I am afraid. And you know what God told me? Sorry about that, y'all. You know what God told me? God said to me, God said, you are my child. God said, you gave your life to me when you were 13 years old. You live for me. You are my child. I love you. He said, you have to trust me. You have to trust me that I will provide for you. He said, I've always provided for you. He said, yes, man believes in the 9 to 5. God says, I give you common sense. God said, I understand, for man don't work, he doesn't eat. God said, I understand that. And this is what God was just talking to me about. This is what he was talking to me about. And God said, I am your provider. He said, yes, you've been going to that 9 to 5. He said, yes. He said, but if I am telling you to leave your 9 to 5 and to come work for me, he said, why is it so hard for you to believe that I will provide for you? He said, you believe that 9 to 5 provides, is your provision, is how you make your money. He said, you believe in that job. He said, why can't you believe in me that I will provide for you? He said, why can't you believe in me, the Almighty, the all-knowing God? He said, I'm telling you, God said, I will provide for you. He said, I promise I will take care of you. I promise that I will provide for you. I promise I will guide you. I promise I will lead you like I have been all these years. He said, thank you for finally answering the call. Not half answering, fully, because I was half answering it at one point too. But God said, thank you for fully answering the call, fully committing yourself and your life to me. He said, I promise I will provide for you. I promise I will make a way for you. He said, don't worry about the natural. Don't worry about that. He said, this is a spiritual move. And I said, God, well, how we do. I said, God, well, what is my family going to say? What is my, because I help people a lot. I'm not, trying to get into too much of my business. I was the one, I was that one that people came to for help. And because I've always been financially stable. So I was the one that people came to for help. I have no problem with that because I know what it's like to need help. So I always try to help people any way that I can. So I said, well, wow, God. I said, well, what is my family going to say? What are my friends are going to say? And what is my mom going to say? And, I just thought about that. Oh, my family and what they're going to say. And God said, this walk isn't about man. This walk is not about family and friends. God said, this walk is between me and you. He said, if I'm telling you to do something, you have to trust me. You have to trust me. And I'm telling you, God said, I promise I will provide for you. I promise I will protect you. He said, does not my word say that? I will provide all your needs. God said, we have a covenant. You've given your life. God said, we have a covenant. He just kept reminding me. And God said, I promise I will provide for you. And you know what else God said? Now, as he was telling me this, I'm telling you, my spirit just got so happy. Oh, God is talking to me. God is saying he's gonna provide, and he promised me, and this is what he wants me to do, and I'm gonna do what God told me to do. I'm telling you, my spirit is just feeling so happy, and I'm just like, okay, all right, God, I believe in my spirit, I believe in my heart, I can do this, God, I can do this. And then you know what God said to me? He said, after he was saying, I promise I'll be there, I promise I'll provide, I promise, just I'll guide you, I'll lead you, just stay focused on me. He said, you're walking away from your 9 to 5. He said, walking away from your 9 to 5. He said, I know it's not easy. He said, but coming to work for me, God said, it's going to be 10 times harder. And I'm telling you that smile just came. When God said that, it just wiped the smile right off of my face. I'm being so honest. He said, coming to work for me, he said, it's not going to be easy. He said, because in order to grow, in order to go where I want you to go, in order to be who I've called you to be, he said, it's not going to be easy. He said, you are going to go through. He said, you're going to go through, and you're going to go through, and you're going to go through things. He said, you're going to go through. He said, it's going to be days when you're going to feel like giving up. He said, there are going to be days where you're going to feel like walking away from me. He said, there are going to be days where you're going to feel like quit. You're going to feel like quitting. You're going to feel like quitting. You're not going to want to work for me no more. You're going to want to go back to your 9 to 5. He said, coming to work for me full time. He said, it's not going to be easy. He said, he said, you're going to have to pay a price. He said, you're going to have to go through trials and tribulations. You're going to have to go through and through. And I'm sitting here as God is telling me this. And I'm saying, now, why would I want to put myself through this? Why would I put myself through this? Why would I put myself through heartache and pain and trials and tribulations and why? And you know what? He was being honest. We all know God is honest. God cannot lie. And he was just telling me the truth, as he always does. And I know God would never lie to me, never hurt me, never do anything to hurt me on purpose. And I know this because I know the word. And God said to me, when you come work for me, he said, it's going to be hell. He said, it's going to be hard. He said, there are going to be days, he said, well, you're just going to want to quit and go back to your 9 to 5. He said, but I promise you, through the hell, through the heartache, through the pain, he said, I promise you I will be there. I promise. He said, I promise I'll never leave you. God said, I promise I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you. He said, I promise. And after God said that to me, I left on a promise. I left on a promise. I left my 9 to 5. I left my 9 to 5. I left my 9 to 5. I did. I left my 9 to 5 in December. I left my 9 to 5 that first week of December. January, February, March, April. I had money in savings, checking. I had money saved up. So that's how things, started with me paying the bills. And I'm telling you, family and friends thought I was crazy. My children were like, what, mommy? All we know is you getting up, going to work, dropping us off to school every day. That's all we know. And what do you mean you're not going to work no more, mommy? Does this mean we're going to lose our house? You know what I mean? Lose where we live? And you know how children are. And I had to explain to them, of course, on a spiritual level. And as best I could, And that day I left work, I went to my mom's, who is a woman of God. My mom raised us in the church. Thank God for that, She's a woman of God. And I went to her and I told her, I said, Mom, I said, I left work. I put in my notice at work. I left there and went straight to my mom. And I said, Mom, I said, I left my 9 to 5. I said, mind you, she's everybody knows that's all I do is work, And I said, Mom, I said, I left my 9 to 5. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I left work. I said, I won't be working no more. I said, I'm going to be working for God. And she looked at me and she said, are you sure it's God that told you? Are you sure that God told you that? She said, are you sure that it's God? And I said, yes, ma'am. I said, I'm sure it was God. I said, Mom, I wouldn't leave my job if it wasn't God. And she said, I know. She said, I know. She said, because I know you. And she said, okay. I know you know God. And I know. She said, so if you're saying this is what God is saying, she said, I'm here. I'm here to support you. And I said, thank you. And I really thought she was going to be like, what? I ain't gonna pay bills. But she did. The first thing she said was, are you sure it was God? And I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, okay. She said, all right. She said, if you say it's God, she said, then God gonna make a way. God gonna provide. But I just wanted to share that with you guys. Like I was saying, in December, first week of December, I had left. And January, February, March, April. January, February, March, April, what? 3.5, well, about 4 months, April the 13th, is it the 14th? I'm sorry. April the 14th, I'm trying to remember so many things in my head right now. April the 14th, yes, April the 14th, I'll never forget the date. Mind you, let me just go back. The first week of December, this was in 2022. December, the first week of December in 2022. I had put in my notice and wasn't working anymore. Left in December, work in December. January, February, March, April, the 14th of 2023, I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. When I tell you, answering the call has not been easy. Leaving my 9 to 5 has not been easy. It has not. Yes, there were days where I didn't know how I was going to pay the bills. Yes, there were days where I didn't know how we were going to eat, if we were going to eat. Yes, there were days where I didn't know how bills were going to get paid. Yes, there were days where it was rough. Yes, there were days that I wanted to just walk away from God and just go back to my 9 to 5. Yes, there were heartaches and pain. And if you guys have been watching my channel, you know that I've shared my cancer journey from the beginning. I mean, I had this ministry channel. I've had this ministry. Let me share this with you guys. I've had this spiritual channel for about 5 years now. Yeah, about 5 years now. October, I think it'll be 5 years. Yes, almost 5 years. I've had my second channel. You guys know in the description box is my second channel. It's the link to my second channel. Over there I do makeup, hair, girly things, cook, stuff like that. I had that channel first. That's my first channel I had started. And I've had that channel for about October will be 7 years for that channel. 6 or 7 years. I think 7 years, if I'm not mistaken. I've been doing YouTube for so long. And I've had my 2 channels, my 2 platforms for so long. Like I was saying, yes, I'm sharing my spiritual journey. Yes, there were days where I didn't know. I didn't know how a lot was going to happen. Yes, I have been through a lot. If you've been watching my channel here, I have been through a lot, and I've shared it here. Not everything, but what God leads me to share. Yes, there were days where I didn't know, but you know what? I had to keep the faith. I had to trust God. And let me tell you something. God has kept his promise. Everything that he promised me, he has kept it. When days were hard, God promised me he'd be there. When I didn't know how things were going to happen, God worked them out. God figured them out. God provided. God made a way. Everything that God promised me, he did. Everything he promised me that day. Everything and more. God has promised me. He has provided for me and my family. He has led me. He has guided me, given me instructions, told me what to do, told me what not to do. He has provided for us. He has been there for us. We still live in the same place. Yes, there was times when I was like, I don't know how this rent is gonna get paid. I don't know. I'm telling you, I didn't know, but God provided. God made a way. And working for God, it has not been easy. It is not for the weak. That's why a lot of people don't answer the call. It's not for the weak. And as I've been growing spiritually in this journey, I've gotten closer to God. I've gotten stronger in my faith, stronger in my knowledge, reading my Bible more, praying more. I'm telling you, my spirit has grown so much. Little things that used to get to me don't get to me anymore. I'm telling you, this has truly been a spiritual journey, working for God. And as far as working for God, what it is that God has me doing, he has, both of my platforms. So I have 2, I have my Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. I am Arickamisha on all platforms for the one channel. God's Purpose Only, my spiritual channel, on all platforms. So that's Facebook. I have my spiritual channel, my beauty channel. Arickamisha, that's my beauty channel. God's Purpose Only on Facebook. I have two platforms on Facebook. I have the 2 platforms on YouTube, and I have the 2 platforms on Instagram. So I am busy. Working for God, putting everything out there that God is taking me through, sharing my spiritual journey, sharing God's word, sharing what God wants me to share with his people, sharing what God wants me to talk to his people about. God gives me a word all the time, and I'm here to share. I truly believe that we are here for God's purpose only. God's purpose only. And working for God, I am full-time. I am there. Of course, I'm still a mother, of course. But now that I'm not working my 9 to 5, I am more available for God's people, for the people that I minister to, for the people that God leads me to minister to. And sorry, y'all, my camera keeps trying to act up. But full-time there, ministry, to be available for God's people or for whoever needs me. I have family and friends that, when they need to go somewhere, if they don't have a vehicle, they call me and I take them where they need to go. I'm telling you, working for God is a lot. It's a lot. It's a tough job. It really is. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it and say, oh, everything's all gravy. Everything's great. No. It's not. But I love that God is my boss. I do. I love the fact that he is my boss. Is it easy working for God? No. Just being honest. You know, like I said, there are days. I recently had one of those days. Let me say that, where I just wanted to just walk away. I just wanted to walk away and go back to my 9 to 5. I have a lot of days like that. You know, I'm being honest. I have days like that where I'm just like, God, I cannot do this. Especially when I was fighting cancer. Let me say I am cancer free. All glory goes to God. All glory goes to God. I am cancer free now. But I'm still dealing with a lot of medical issues, you know, from fighting cancer and the toll that it took on my body. But God is still God. And like I said, I left on a promise, and God kept his promise. God kept his promise. And I thank God for that. That's what God wanted me to come and share today. I left on a promise. And I'm here to say that it is so important to have a relationship with God. It's so important. Because if I didn't believe it, if I didn't trust God, if I didn't believe what he said to me, and if I didn't believe in his promise, I'm sure I would be still working my 9 to 5, not being fully fulfilled. Because even when I was working, I just started feeling like it just wasn't where I was supposed to be. You know? Oh yeah, man says, you know, that's where you're supposed to be. But spiritually, it wasn't where God wanted me. It wasn't where he wanted me. It wasn't where he wanted me physically either. Spiritually and physically, God wanted me working for him. God wanted me to be there for people. God wanted me to be there for his people and minister to people and have the platforms where I talk about my spiritual journey. But that's what God wanted me to come and share, how I left on a promise. The promise of God. This video has been long already, guys. I hope you stayed to the end. I just wanted to come and share with you guys how I left on a promise. God is amazing. God is amazing. Thank you guys so much for watching. God bless. Bye.